Governor Phil Bryant in Mississippi signed a bill last week to officially declare the first weekend of every September Second Amendment weekend. Now, what does that weekend entail? Well, the government will not collect its 7% sales tax that it levies on consumer goods on guns that weekend. So effectively what that means is there's a weekend in Mississippi where you have state-subsidized guns. Now, that's so ridiculous it doesn't even need further discussion. The idea that there could be a state where kids are starving or people don't have health care and you can be in extreme poverty. I mean, Mississippi has the worst poverty rate in the nation. I mean, it's incredible that they could think for even a split second, let's take our limited resources and subsidize guns as opposed to doing other things which would actually, make sense. But also, this plan, it fundamentally misunderstands what the Second Amendment is really about. I notice this all the time. You see it in right-wing circles endlessly. And not just that, the Democrats have bought into this framing also because they didn't do their due diligence and actually fucking research the situation. But it's just common knowledge, or it's just commonly accepted nowadays that most people think the Second Amendment is for the last line of defense against tyranny. Yes, if the government gets out of control, you can kill them. You can fight a war against them and keep them in check. I mean, for fuck's sake, what are you going to do? Take a Ruger 22 and defeat chemical weapons and Scud missiles and Abrams tanks and nuclear weapons? What are you, insane? It's impossible. It'd be the quickest war in human history. You would lose immediately. It's not about that. It never was about that. In fact, I'll give you the real history of the Second Amendment. It's basically... It's twofold. There were two main reasons why the Second Amendment was put into the Constitution. The first reason had to do with standing armies. Now, what that means is the Founding Fathers were fearful that during peacetime, you would have, if the army stayed intact when it was home, they might overthrow the government. So what they decided was, look, throw in this thing about a well-regulated militia with the right to bear arms, because we want the military to disband every time we're at peace. Whenever there's no war in the U.S., the military is supposed to disband while it's at home. And the idea was, well, at least if you throw in that thing about, you have the right to bear arms for a well-regulated militia, you're telling the army, you don't have to give up your weapons and live without your weapons. You can have your weapons, but the military and the army needs to disband. Okay, so it was a hedge against something like the military coming home and then there being, a takeover of the government. So that's the first reason. The second reason is it was put in the Constitution as a bargaining chip to get Virginia to join the Union. See, Virginia was hesitant. They didn't want to become part of the U.S., and they feared that most of the people in Virginia were slaves. It was a majority slave state, and they feared that the second they joined the Union, all of the slaves would escape north and become free. So what the founders did was they put in the Second Amendment to say, all right, look, here's what we'll do. Join the Union, and we will allow you to have these well-regulated militias where you can have guns, and then you can patrol the border to make sure that your slaves don't escape to the north. So the idea that the real history of the Second Amendment, one of the main reasons for it was to preserve slavery in Virginia. This meme that popped up that, it's the last line of defense against tyranny, totally made up. Somewhere along the line, I don't know whether it was the NRA, I don't know whether it was just some right-wing commentators, but now everybody just casually says, that's the purpose of it. Wrong. And then I haven't even gotten into the obvious textual issues where people say, nope, we have a right to every kind of gun, AK-47, rocket launcher, doesn't matter. Okay, but wait a second. The first sentence of the Second Amendment is a well-regulated militia necessary to the security of a free state. So what happened? You're saying that regulation of guns isn't allowed? The fucking word regulated is right in the Second Amendment. What are you, crazy? And then also, you're a member of a militia? Nice. Let me see your card that shows that you're a member of a militia. Oh, you're not a member of a militia, so you're still barking about something that you don't understand. And not only that, at the time, you might have needed guns back in the late 1700s to protect against, Native Americans and bears and redcoats. It's kind of different world we're living in now on top of all of that. So this extremist ideology and this belief that we know what the Second Amendment is for, it's for this rigid thing to protect against tyranny, totally disregards the history, totally disregards the reality, and something like what Governor Phil Bryant in Mississippi is doing right now is beyond ridiculous, and it stems from that misinterpretation and misrepresentation of what the Second Amendment really is.